Hello and welcome to the Method Matters show, Beers on the Balcony. I'm your podcast host, Greg Kouwiloyan, co-founder and director for Method Recruitment. This show is purely centered around interviewing thought leaders and learning more about their past, their present, and what lies ahead in their future. And today I am very fortunate to be sharing the airwaves with Umair Murtaza, who is a friend and a peer. And Umair, welcome to our podcast show.
Thank you so much, Greg, for having me. Really looking forward to our chat today.
Excellent, matey. Excellent. As I said, I've been very much looking forward to this one, matey. That's for sure. And for those of you who basically don't know who Umair is the head of finance business partnering for one of Australia and Victoria's largest education providers. Umair currently working as the business partner leader for a large body, looks after a team and influences a team around about 30 qualified accountants, servicing around about 300 schools across Greater Melbourne. Also providing strategic business planning, budgeting, reporting, governance and risk management, alongside facilitating a rather large ERP platform as well. On a personal note, Umair loves working with various NFPs and believes mentorship is so important, as he has benefited from having various mentors across his illustrious career, and believes in connecting the right people with the right mentors to hopefully better themselves in due course. Now, Umair, did that sound about right, my friend? Did I give you a good summation at the very least?
Thank you, Greg. You've been very kind. And I think the words coming from you just try to lift the guest profile. So I'm indebted for that kind introduction.
No, you're welcome, mate. We're very, very happy you're here. And we mentioned previously that this podcast is going to be for our audience, and the audience will hopefully benefit from some insights that you'll provide in due course. And yeah, hopefully we can launch straight into it. Now, I know it's a beers on the balcony type affair under the Method Matters show. It's a little bit of a crazy hour. I won't be drinking my beer, but I will keep it stowed away for you when the time is right. I'm just going to settle for a nice strong coffee, mates.
Oh, that sounds great. The weather's pretty cold today, so I think we can settle for a hot, warm mocha, which I just had 10 minutes before coming into this meeting.
Good stuff, mate. So you're fighting fit. Umair, let's delve into the questions. Now, obviously centered around past experiences. If we were to rewind time and you were to speak to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give?
So that's a fairly long time ago. Yeah. So, 18 years ago. So, yeah, something which comes to my mind looking back is to be more curious and questioning what's happening around you. Because, I remember being very much preoccupied with just education around that time, with the studies, the desire to kind of, excel in grades and whatnot. But, I was equally, I'm content with the fact that I was always curious and always had questions, a very inquisitive nature. So I would actually, further reiterate to my old self, if I were to have access to a time portal, to, just question a lot, be curious. Knowledge is surely over and above what you learn through structured education in a university or a college. And, if you're curious by nature, you end up having an expanded worldview and a bigger horizon than, what many others would find. And what it does, Greg, is, in the course of your career and your personal and professional life, it really pays a lot of dividend. The more curious you are, the more inquisitive you are, and the more unafraid you are to ask questions, it really helps.
I think you make a really, really good point there, actually, around questioning, asking the right questions. I know that obviously we're both fathers ourselves, and I'm constantly trying to instill that element of curiosity into my children. Even if the comprehension isn't quite there, they're asking, so why is this? And, why would we do this? And, why is it structured in this way? And it's like, well, most times I do have the questions or the answers. A lot of times I don't. It's like, oh, I don't actually know. I'll have to double check that one for you quickly. But you're right. Instilling that element of curiosity is also, a trait that most employers would be looking for. Someone that maybe will challenge a status quo to a degree, that will build some innovation into their role. So I have to admit, mate, I think you make a very, very valid point.
That's great.
Perfect. Now, second question, and thank you for your insights there, matey. I think that's wonderful. I think you've hit a nail on the head, to be fair. Now, obviously, the recording this podcast for our audience, and a big chunk of that audience will be people that want to break into the senior finance leadership arena. And as I alluded to previously, your career has been nothing but illustrious to date. And obviously leading and driving the capability of 30 qualified accountants who look to you for inspiration and upskilling. If someone was looking to be a future leader in due course, is there anything that you could say, or already any imparting words that might benefit someone if they're looking to choose that course?
Yeah, Greg, I looking back, I would say I have been fortunate enough actually to have stepped into roles since 2011. It's almost a decade now, which previously did not used to exist. So that really helped me kind of, get out of my comfort zone by design. So, sometimes you actually make a conscious effort of getting outside your comfort zone, but sometimes you land into situations whereby you have no option but to be out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So my advice would to aspiring financial leaders or who want to break into senior finance space would be just get out of your comfort zone. And when I say that, it links in with the previous, answer which I shared with regards to being inquisitive. If you're inquisitive and you're willing to get out of your comfort zone, the best thing you can do, especially when you are growing in your career, is that you start understanding, appreciating, and respecting what your non-finance colleagues do. Often, a mistake done by a lot of accountants is that they would really, pride themselves on knowing the latest, accounting standard, the technical details, the jargon, the language, and, how capable and competent and qualified they are, which is absolutely true. But they often do not have the proper appreciation and understanding of what your non-finance colleagues do. And, what I have experienced over the years is that, your CA, CPA, CIMA, or any other renowned accountancy qualification would not mean much to a PhD doctor, a scientist, a marketeer, an engineer, a land surveyor. And if you're not able to explain what you want from them or what you're presenting to them in a language which they are comfortable in, you wouldn't get across. And, the more senior you climb into financial roles, the more imperative it is that you are understood, respected, and seen as a trusted business partner. So instill humility, keep yourself grounded, use that accounting qualification as an asset, but not a means to a be all and end all. So get to know people, take interest in what they do, and then position yourself in a way whereby you can actually genuinely offer help to them. In that way, they will just gravitate towards you and seek your wise counsel.
I think you made a great point there, to be completely honest, a very valid point. And it is amazing. I think the one thing that probably cannot be either outsourced or automated is what people classify as softer skills, the interpersonal skills, the leadership capability. And some of the best leaders that I've worked for throughout my career are the ones who, in your own words, are grounded, are humble, are willing to impart and share their knowledge. And you are right, when obviously you spend 3 years, 4 years qualifying for your CA or CPA or your CIMA or ACMA or ACCA, whatever it may be, that is the tool that you will use and you'll benefit from. But it isn't the be all and end all. I think that's such a valid point. That should be the vehicle, or at least the foundations for you to build your career upon. And I have noticed more and more that people still have that stigma. You know, when you're a finance manager or a head of finance, director of finance, sometimes we can be quite supercilious in that respect. You know, I think that keeping the humbled, grounded ethos, you know, it will only hopefully breed better behaviors and build better retention into teams and so forth. So I think you made a wonderful point there, mate. Brilliant. Thank you for that. Now, technology in the accounting and finance game. Blimey, where do we start? It's quite interesting. I mean, so much has happened in a short space of time, and it seems like in Australia, there's been so many different themes, you know, that overseas, the outsourcing, the shared service models, the business partner models, the utilization of the customer experience, utilization of data. Trying to squeeze as much as you can out of your ERPs so you can obviously, you know, make better decisions. Operating in that education space, I would love to understand, you know, how has technology shaped yourself and the organization over the past 2 or 3 years?
This would be something, you know, which we cannot go without touching upon, you know, to how technology has impacted all of us, especially in the COVID era over the past 2 years. Because I personally think, and I'll just come back to the exact question you've asked, but, you know, just a preamble in terms of one of the things which COVID has brought about, which is, if I dare may say, a positive, is about the accelerated pace of adoption of technology. There is absolutely no way we would have adopted technology or embraced technology as quickly as we have, thanks to, you know, the worldwide disruption created by COVID. So that has had a profound impact on all organizations, you know, whether you're in the private sector, the public sector, or even, you know, our interaction today. It's facilitated by technology. I wouldn't have, you know, imagined that, you know, we'll be having a chat, you know, virtually and not in person. With regards to what, you know, how technology has shaped up, I would say broadly, you know, within the existing sector where I'm working, I think traditionally some sectors are, you know, less agile towards embracing technology. You know, my sector just being one, whereby, you know, people have a set way of doing things and they have been very comfortable with a set way of doing things. So as an entire sector as a whole, I think technology has brought about a lot of agility in the working methods. I'm sure all of us suffer Zoom fatigue, WebEx, Microsoft projects, Zoom, multiple platforms which we use. But in the same way, they've allowed closer interaction in a way that, you know, there is no way possible when you were in a physical space, you would have 3 to 4 different meetings back to back, one after the other. So it has brought about that efficiency aspect, that, you know, aspect of having a lot of quick access interaction with fellow team members where you can brainstorm, take decisions, and, you know, drive business outcomes. On the whole, technology has allowed our organization and the sector to embrace a lot of cloud-based solutions, whereby a lot of data, you know, is kind of, you know, stored, maintained on cloud-based solutions. People have access to these. People who were initially not comfortable with accessing cloud-based data warehouses now are very comfortable with that, because there was no other option but to do so. What has happened more recently is, you know, the amount of data which we've gathered, especially when working, you know, in the way which we have been. There's a lot of access to data. There is ready access to data. That repository of data has kind of, you know, led people, I would call on my own self as an individual, to kind of, you know, understand and appreciate the value of data as such. I took upon a course which, you know, out of the, you know, just to continue to upskill myself in, you know, visualization and data analytics. And I found that, you know, the sort of themes you can, you know, uncover using access to big data, they are very, very enriching. You get to understand your business better. You get to understand the trends within your industry a lot better. And these deeper insights allow you to engage and interact with your business stakeholders a lot better. And most importantly, understand the needs of the customers you're serving. Technology has been disruptive. It has been very empowering at the same time, but it's been accelerated at a pace through the COVID disruption, something which we never saw. So technology is all around us, and it's the new reality, whether we, get comfortable with it to the extent which we wanted or not, but it's all around us and it's dictating our lives.
It sure is. It sure is. And I think you make a really valid point, is that I couldn't imagine what it would have been like if we did enter into that new state of working early part of last year without the necessary tools. My goodness. And I do think to a degree there was, especially from our perspective, was that there was a little bit of over communication in the early days, maybe a little bit of justification as to what we're doing and how we're doing it. But it was so new and so fresh. And in the end, it probably took about 3 or 4 weeks of finding our feet. And obviously there's that element of trust that you instill in your team and the wider business. And then, yes, it becomes just a means in the end, a vehicle to get what you need done. And you are right, you kind of need to embrace it. If you don't, unfortunately, there's certain basics you can't get done, like speaking to wonderful people like yourself or having those necessary stakeholder meetings. It's so difficult. But who knows what's going to happen in another 2 or 3 years, mate? Will it be as dramatic? Who knows? But it's all to be written at the moment. So thank you for that, mate. I do appreciate it. Like most proven leaders, personal development is huge, and ongoing learning obviously needs to be prevalent, stay on top of your game. If we were to talk about how you continuously like to stay on top, or how you basically like to kind of continuously sort of upskill yourself from a personal development perspective, have you got some examples as to what you're currently doing?
Yeah, sure, Greg. So I just touched upon very briefly that how this opportunity allowed, myself to upskill in data visualization and, trying to make sense of the massive volumes of data we are inundated with every other day. So that's on the technical side, which I recently completed and found it very enriching. So my suggestion, advice would be to anyone wanting to get more meaningful insights from the volumes of data we come across, is to undertake something of their own liking in a data visualization course and they can choose a platform of their own liking. I wouldn't be wanting to root for one platform over the other. Apart from that, Greg, I believe that, we can never learn enough. So I'm very fortunate that my C Institute allows a lot of, learning and development opportunities on an ongoing basis. So I try to make, time to attend those. And apart from those learning and development opportunities, what I really like is their renewed focus on well-being and engagement with members. So despite being a time difference and, sometimes logging in for a really late evening or an early morning sessions, I really try to take out time to attend those sessions, often centered on well-being, engagement, taking care of yourself, and self-care initiatives. Apart from that, Greg, there is a thought leadership platform where I volunteer, and I get a lot of personal fulfillment out of, participating in thought leadership events and, taking part in such activities. So that's something which keeps me going. And because, whether it's your own initiative of what you learn from your professional institute, what you do out of your own volunteering efforts, or even sometimes what your organization offers you, I think personal development is an ongoing journey. And personally, I believe this should never be limited to your existing employer. It's a personal cause which you need to champion, because, you wouldn't want to be you wouldn't want your professional development to be a priority for someone else. It has to be your own priority, and you really need to champion it yourself. So these are some of the things which I continue to do and look forward to continue in the future.
Good stuff, mate. And you are right. The personal development journey shouldn't start and stop with, your current employer. You need to be going out there and discovering things that interest you. If you can get involved in mentorship groups or thought leadership groups, or even just aligning yourself with people maybe outside of your organization who you feel like are inspiring leaders, it's worth doing. And asking, them, whatever, she or he may be doing, so, what's important to you, what sort of podcasts are you listening to, any inspirational books, anything along those lines, I think. And it is a continuous journey. Why stop? Why always be learning as much as possible? And so, yes, I think it's a really, really valid point there, mate. Thank you for that. Your journey to date, as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of what you achieved in the short and long term. And I was just going to ask you milestones, achievements that you're super proud of. Is there any particular examples that come to mind that you'd like to share?
Yeah, Greg. I would love to share a few. And in the spirit of trying to steer away from everything technical, I'll do my best to share these as if they are going to be understood by anyone, whether or not they're working in a finance realm or elsewise. So one thing which I really, looking back, I treasure and I feel a sense of accomplishment and success is to having worked in finance roles over the past decade, whereby those roles never existed. So what did that mean? That meant that, there was a business need which arose, but there was no structured position description or role definition or a department definition which existed at that time. So, I was always happy to put my hand up and get kind of thrown at the deep end. So this has allowed me opportunities over the course of my last 3 employment at different employers across various countries to, kind of set up the department, set up the value proposition of the role I am holding. After doing that, kind of, continue to create value proposition for the team, the value they bring to the table, and why this role and the team which had been created was so instrumental to delivering business insights, driving value, etc. So that's on a big level, because this has been repeated over 3 times, starting 2011 and now. I believe this is something I'm really, really proud of and happy to kind of, start something from scratch, build something from ground up. In terms of some deliverables or milestones over this time frame, there have been setting up, like I mentioned, because I stepped into new roles, developing, budgeting, management reporting, financial forecasting, framework from ground up. But what I was always inquisitive about, like I shared earlier, was not the financial number work. It was always the business storytelling, the story behind the numbers. Why are certain things, the way they are? Like, why is this happening? That why part was always my focus. And I think this has helped empower, both financial and non-financial stakeholders I've been dealing with and who were the recipients of the deliverables I was giving, for them to understand and interpret the story behind the numbers. This is something I'm really happy of and something which drives me a lot to date. Another thing which I could mention is that, which I found a lot of fulfillment on, was partnering with business leaders like, CEOs, managing directors of various portfolio companies where I was previously employed, within automotive, FMCG, real estate sectors, introducing brands, divesting brands, launching new projects, malls, hospitalities, hotels. What gave me a lot of fulfillment was, that presentation which I put together, underpinned by a financial model, maybe in a spreadsheet. All of that has transpired into launching the latest vehicle brand, that nice hotel overseeing the ocean on the bayside. It was very tangible that how inputs led to informed decision making, resulting in outputs over a course of a period of time. So that gave me a lot of fulfillment. And coming more recently, I think I find a lot of personal fulfillment in terms of shaping, helping, creating, and ongoing developing a business partnering team of 50 professionals now. Our team's growing, and this is coming at a time where business partnering itself is finding a lot of limelight. So what I'm very happy and content with myself and with the fantastic and wonderful team I work with is that the true essence of business partnering is delivered in our organization. And, the best case in point being that our team every single day works with both financial and non-financial stakeholders and is helping them understand business outcomes, the story behind the numbers, trends in the past, and some emerging possibilities which will arise in the future. I hope that was a snapshot of what I have been doing today.
Brilliant. No, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And there's so much that we can unpack there, Umair. Blimey, where do I start? That was awesome. I have to admit, I think you're absolutely correct when it comes down to what is business partnering. I think there's a huge misconception that business partnering is just, good management accounting, dealing with some sticky stakeholders and, managing those stakeholders to maybe strengthen some relationships. Potentially, yes, that's one part. But I think the true utilization of understanding what the information means and your words verbatim telling a story as to what it means to that business leader, that hiring manager, that particular stakeholder, so they can use that information, that data for the greater good of their own decision making. That to me is what is business partnering. So if there are any budding business partners out there, that's what it is. Okay, it's about breaking down complex terms into more layman's language. So whether you're from a finance or non-finance background, you can really understand what it means for your environment. But I think that's such a valid point, and I think it's a point that gets overlooked quite a lot is telling the story.
What absolutely.
Yeah, what does it mean? So I think that's a wonderful point. Thank you so much, mate. You've given us so much insight, again, both into past, present, and future. I cannot thank you enough. We're very lucky to have someone of your stature on the show. And listen, on a parting note, I'd like to wrap things up with a little bit of fun. And I know that you are a new father, so congratulations.
Thank you.
You do look remarkably fresh for having a little bub. And I know that when people ask me when I was a new dad, what advice have you got for me? I was like, you're speaking to the wrong person. But I was going to ask you the same question, matey. If we do have any mothers or fathers to be, or anyone's thinking about setting up a family, give us some words of wisdom. Please, anything that you want to share when it comes to parenting, my friend.
First up, I'll take I'll just actually dispense the same advice which I got from you. Actually, when I sought your wise counsel in terms of, hey, Greg, any approach towards, handling parenthood while we were on the journey before we welcomed our baby girl, and you were like, listen to all, but do what suits you. And I think that was really good advice, because you are inundated with a lot of advice before you welcome your baby in the world, after you welcome your baby in the world. So it's about, people come from a good space. They would want to share their insights and all, but something which, really new moms or dads or, existing mom and dads who are welcoming a child after a gap, they could benefit from is that take advice as it comes your way, because people are coming from a good space, but do what suits you best. We are often comparing and, putting ourselves, in a tough spot by looking at wonderful Instagram stories of how wonderful parenting is for mom and dads and the ideal mom and dads. And that can cause a lot of, comparison. It can cause a lot of, self, judgment and all. Don't put yourself in a difficult spot. You do what you can do best, back yourself, trust in yourself, and enjoy parenthood. Yeah. I do not know where my time goes, and all those Netflix seasons which I was catching up and all the other things which I was doing are just disappeared, but they've been substituted by something equally wonderful. So enjoy parenthood because it's wonderful.
Mate, great words of wisdom. Far more eloquent than I could have ever put in myself, mate. Oh, that's wonderful, mate. Thank you for joining us, mate. I can't thank you enough. I think you've been a wonderful addition to the series, and everything you provided the audience, I'm sure there'll be some takeaways there. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Greg. A pleasure to join you, and credit to you and the team at Method for championing something like this. Even if some of what I've said and your other esteemed speakers have said gets through to aspiring finance leaders, it would be a great achievement. You were very kind enough to mention in your introduction about how I personally treasure mentoring opportunities. I am so grateful to some of the fantastic mentors who I've come across in my career and the value they've dispensed and what I've learned from them. So what you guys are actually doing through these podcast series is actually dispensing something very similar to mentoring opportunities to a wider audience. So great work on that aspect.
Thank you, mate. It's hard because a lot of people don't know where to look for information. You kind of look to your immediate community, and sometimes if you're looking for something that can't be sourced immediately, where can you go? And that was the premise behind the whole series, was to, if we can speak to thought leaders and really strong business leaders such as yourself, your knowledge and what you can share, it's worth its weight in gold. So I'm very thankful for the time, my friend. And I know you've been giving me some funny looks at my crazy wannabe mustache in the true flavor of Movember. So do not hold it against me that I'm desperately aiming and struggling to grow something that will raise some funds somewhere along the line. All right. So do not pass judgments. Okay. But Umair, thank you, my friend. Okay. I'm wishing you all the very, very best. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Oh, thanks a lot, Greg. A pleasure.
Lovely.